Hello everybody, Jason Lee here, aka Yu-Gi-Oh! Deckmaster. I decided I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach this time. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite archetypes, one that's actually done pretty well for me in the last few OTS events I've gone through. And I've been having a lot of fun with it, but I figure I'll give a little bit of a backstory before so, for those that don't know what it is. Deck I'm talking about is Phantasm Spiral. For those of you who don't know what that is, Phantasm Spiral is a level 8 it's supposed to be focused around a level 8 worm monster that gets special summoned out through the equip spells that the deck runs. It also runs trap cards that can pop and negate stuff. I don't run my deck that way, but I do take synergy from certain cards in the deck. It's all based on normal monsters. You run no effect monsters in the deck. To be honest, the deck can't even work if you have effect monsters in it. The main focus of the deck is going to be summoning a token. It basically looks like this thing right here, and is 2,000 attack, 2,000 defense, level 8 worm, water. And it's normal. All tokens are normal. And your field spell's the key focus of the deck. Let me show you. This card right here, key focus of the deck. This card will search out all the cards you need and spawn the token. I'll go more into detail when I go through the deck itself. And what you can search is the equip spells or the level 8 monster or the traps. I focus more on the traps because the traps have a unique ability. If both this card or Ami itself is on the field, which this card is always treated as Ami, and a normal monster is on the field, you can activate them from your hand. So basically, if you summon or search one out, say on your opponent's turn, and you have a normal and the field spell up, you can activate it as a hand trap right from your hand, giving you massive interruptions on your opponent's turn. Now I took this concept of the deck and I decided, well, okay, they got some pretty cool cards, but what can I do to make it more? It's not going to be a combo deck. It doesn't do aggressive, OTKing. The strongest amount of monsters you can get are with normals and no monster effects. This is going to be like 2,000 attack, maybe a little higher. So it's a stallish stun deck. You're going to run as many floodgates as you can. And I have been working on this deck on and off for probably about the last 6-7 months. I've gone to 3 OTS events with it. Did great at 2, not so good at the 3rd, but still have done improvements. The one weakness of the deck is you are very field spell reliant, so you have to get to your field spell. And above all else, you need to keep the field spell out. If you can do that, you're going to pretty much keep advantage. And you will keep up with the opponent because you can keep spawning a token. You can only control one token at a time, though, rules of the field spell. But you can keep spawning it every time they take it out. Now, field spell's main requirement. And then, of course, the floodgates control. So you say, hey, you can't do this, and my, token and normal monsters in my deck are going to now beat the hell out of you. And that's sort of the concept of the deck. This deck has been tried on several events. Did top in, I believe, a regional in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I believe it was Tulsa. Is it? Yeah, Tulsa. So that's the concept of the deck. In a minute, I will go ahead and get into the view, the deck special itself. The reason why I don't run the equip spells is because it's very flashy. They can do some cool stuff, but if you're trying to compete against the meta, it's kind of bricks if you don't have the right cards. And running the level 8 is a dead draw. Even though the equip spells can summon it from hand, deck, or grave, it still is just a liability, when it's better just to play the trap cards over the equip spells. This is my opinion. Of course, you can run those cards if you want, and you do have access to a lot of cards such as Card of Demise, Pot of Duality, Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Desires if you wish. You can pretty much run any draw card that's legal. And you can run the Tinye support if you wish. I run one card, the Counter Trap, Fist of the Unrivaled Tinye, but you can run the monsters in it as well, as Vishuddha and even Maparu are very much possible to be ran in this deck. Just keep one thing in mind. Extra deck monsters that have no effects are considered non-effect monsters, not normal. Meaning, if they're on the field, your traps and field spell and all that require normal monsters to do their things. They will not work unless you have a main deck non-effect monster on the field. Extra deck will not help you any if you do that. So you will have to work around it. But it is at all times possible. So, how about we go ahead and get into the build? Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and let's get started. Alright, so let's get on with the deck special. I'll go ahead and explain each of my choices so you can understand why I run what I run. Of course, like I said, the deck is based around normal monsters, so of course you're going to want to run the strongest level 4s you can run. I stick with the water theme because the main focus is water. Even the token's water. So of course we're going to start off with 3 Megala Smasher X's. 2000 attacking Dino. It's normal. It punches hard. Now I had the choice between 3 Fossil Digs or 3 more monsters. I found out half the time that I would draw, because it's a dinosaur, I found out half the time I would draw the Fossil Digs, I'd already have gone through most of the Megala Smashers, or I'd overdraw, 2 Fossil Digs and a Megala Smasher and be like, well, that's crap. So I decided to cut the Fossil Digs and instead put 6 monsters in the main deck. Yep, only 6, no hand traps because it's a Card of Demise deck. So for 2 more normals, I run 2 Gigagigos. The second strongest level 4 water monster at 1850 and is Reptile. So it has nothing in common with the dinosaur, which works for there can be only one. And then for, well, they're just beaters, nothing more. And then for the final monster, I run 1 effect monster. You could put Tinyes in this spot if you like to, but I choose to run 1 Planet Pathfinder. Now, Pathfinder's effect states that you contribute this card on the field as a cost, and then if you do, you can add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. This is another way to get to your field spell, which is the key to the deck. You want to get to it as quick as possible. Keep that in mind. Okay. Then for the field spell, of course you run 3 Pacifus. Pacifus here is very simple. It's always treated as Ami while on the field. Standard. Well, actually, it's always treated as Ami anywhere. Hand, field, deck, grave, bannerstone, doesn't matter. Even if its effects negated as a condition, it's always treated as Ami. While it's on the field, if your opponent activates a card effect after it resolves, you get to special summon a token, as long as you don't control a token. You can only have 1 at a time. The token is that, which is a Phantasm Spiral token, Water Worm, level 8, 2000 attack, 2000 defense, and of course, tokens are normal monsters. Then, once per turn, the token summoning, by the way, is not once per turn. As long as you don't control a token, you can summon a token as many times per turn as you want. Well, as many times per turn as your opponent activates something, anyway. Once per turn, hard once per turn, if you normal or special summon exactly 1 normal monster, including the token, you can search your deck for a Phantasm Spiral card and add it from your deck to your hand. Then for the other spells I run is 3 Card of Demise. You want to get to your floodgates as quick as possible. You run more spell and traps than monsters, so you're never really worried about the discard factor. You run 2 Demise of the Land. This basically says that if your opponent special summons a monster, you can activate a field spell from your deck. It's second and third copy of Terraforming, because Terraforming got limited. One-dimensional Fisher, because you don't care about the graveyard. 2 Goddess Scold Oracle. The only part of this effect that matters, because it does some stuff with the other goddess cards, and it does some stuff with Valkyries and fairy types. Excuse me. The only thing that really matters is you can activate this effect while it's face up on the field. Look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, rearrange them in any order you want, but you can't summon anything for the rest of the turn except fairy types. Keyword, rest of the turn. Do all your summoning beforehand, flip this up, and make sure your opponent draws nothing but shit. Then you got one of the best cards in the deck, Heatwave. Gotta run 3 of this. Heatwave states that you have to activate this at the start of your main phase 1. And until your next draw phase, neither player can normal or special summon effect monsters. Ain't a big deal for you. You only run 1 effect monster, and that is, well, Planet Pathfinder, so not a big deal. Your opponent, on the other hand, it kind of just shuts them out for a whole turn, especially if you open with this. Then, of course, you run 3 Pot of Duality. Special summoning on your turn is not a mandatory. Searching through your deck and getting what you want is always key. And, of course, 1 Terraforming to get to your field spell. For the traps, you run 3 Phantasm Spiral Battle. This is a searched card that you can search through the field spell. And you also run 1 Power. The way they work is if you can only control normal monsters, minimum 1, and they have the whole Burning Abyss clause where if something is face down, it won't work. All your monsters have to be face up and only normal. And remember, extra deck monsters with no effects are considered non-effects, not normal. So only main deck monsters with no effects count. So you have to control only normals to activate it. But if you also control Ami, or Pacifist in this case, because it's treated as Ami, you can activate these cards from your hand as hand traps. As long as you control Ami and a normal monster, you can activate it from your hand. So, aka you have the token or one of the normals and the field spell out, you search this out, you can just play it right from your hand on your opponent's turn. Battle lets you pop any card on the field you want, not once per turn, so you can search out all 3 if you're able to. Or if you have all 3, you can't search out all 3, and you can just pop, 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 pop. And this is basically, I guess you could say, like a watered-down infinite impermanence. You target a monster, they lose 1,000 attack and defense, and their effects are negated till the end of the turn. And yes, you can do damage stuff with this because it does decrease attack. Then you have 3 Sea Stealth Attack. This is not a Pacifist card, but it might as well be. The way this works is when it's activated, you can activate Ami from your hand or grave. So if your Pacifist is in the grave or in your hand, you can activate it. And while Ami is face up on the field, it'll gain additional effects. First effect, once per turn, you can banish 1 water monster you control until the end of the turn. All face-up spell and traps you control, this includes itself, the field spell, and every floodgate you run, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Yeah, and if you banish the token, you don't get it back in phase, but the field spell will make you a new one, so it's not a big deal. If you play your cards right anyway, it can make you a new one in chain real easily, actually. Just chain Sea Stealth to the opponent activating a card, and once their effect resolves, you'll get a token. And if you banish any of your either Gaga Giga or Megalith Smasher, you'll get back in phase as a placement, not a special summon. And basically your floodgates are indestructible, your field spell's indestructible. Sea Stealth itself is indestructible, so Phoenix, Twin Twister, and all that shit does nothing. Love that card. Also, at the start of the damage step, if a water monster whose original level is 5 or higher battles an opponent's monster, catasters/constructs the monster, aka destroys it before damage calculation. Battles means you attack or they attack you. So basically put, if your token battles anything, it'll attempt to destroy it before damage calculation, as long as this is out. Sadly, that goes if you battle a Karibo, it'll try to kill it without applying damage, just as much as if you battled something like a Blue Eyes. You run 2 Fists of the Unraveled Tigné. The way this works is it says when your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect while you control a non-effect monsters, normals are considered non-effect. Just non-effect are not considered normal. I know, weird ruling, blame Konami. But as long as you have the token, Gagagigo, or actually, you can have a few of your non-effect extra deck monsters out too, or Megalo Smasher X. If your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you'll negate the activation. Now for spell and traps, they'll go to the grave because the activation was negated. Monsters, they just stick around because it does not destroy. But if the set card is destroyed, you can special summon a non-effect extra deck monster to your set of the field. I'll show you who that is in a minute. You run 2 lose 1 turns. Lose 1 turn states you have to activate this card at the start. Not start. You have to activate this card while you control no special summon monsters. So before the token. And before you get any of your extra deck stuff out, which you barely ever go into anyway. And while it's face up on the field, if an effect monster is summoned, its effects are negated the turn it's summoned. And if it can go to defense mode, it will. aka Lynx can't, but anything else can and will. So basically skill drain 2, skill drain 3. Macrocosmos, same as Dimensional Fissure. Metaverse searches field spell or activates it. Skill drain. Solemn Judgment, because pay half your life points and negate everything. And then, of course, there can be only 1 times 3, because you run Worm is the token, Dinosaur, Gagagigo is a reptile, and I guess Machine would be Planet Pathfinder. Okay. Now to go for the side real quick. Because you are locked under no special summon clause with Demise and Pot of Duality a lot, we do have 3 Winged Dragon of Raw Spear mode. This is the best way to get past it. 3 Cosmic Cyclone for back row control. 1 Soul Drain. Basically stops Graveyard and Banish Zone effects from going off, similar to Macro and Fissure, controls it. 2 Summons Limits to control the summons. Another lose 1 turn because a 4th skill drain's never bad. 2 Unending Nightmares, you pay 1,000, pop a face-up spell or trap. Not once per turn, once per chain. And this works great against pendulums or decks that rely on specific face-up spell and traps. And then because your opponent will side in a lot of back row hate, 3 Waking the fucking Dragon. They pop your shit, you go off on their ass. And with that, because you run Unravel, you run 2 Gagagigo the Risen. These can be summoned out by it. And if you look real closely, I decided to get the blue colored just because I thought it looked cool. It's a 2950 beater that is water, so it can be banished by Sea Stealth attack, because once it's off the field, you can use your battle and powers. While it's on the field, you can't because it's not a normal. Then you run for, I guess you could say, to link off like kaijus or shit if you get put on your field, or if you have to link for some reason. 2 Barricade Blockers. This is just to get back your field spell, Goddess, or Dimensional Fissure. And then for Waking the Dragon, if 2 get popped in a row, you will summon 1 Goki the Giant Ogre, because he's unaffected by monster effects that are weaker than him, so anything 3,000 or less. He will be unaffected by monster-wise. If he's targeted, he can give up 500 attack to negate it. And he can't be destroyed in battle. Plus, if his attack is ever different than his original, he can boost himself by 1,000 till the end of the turn. And of course, if the second Waking the Dragon, you only bring this out if 2 are destroyed at the same time. Normally, you'll just bring out Ultimate Falcon and, unaffected by everything, beat the shit out of your opponent. Alright, that's the deck. Let me show you a few test hands, and we'll go from there. Let me know what you think down below. Rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace out. Rock on.